Let me start with a question. Have you ever been absolutely certain about something only to later realize you were completely wrong? A senior leader once told me, "Bhaskar, my team has stopped taking ownership." He was convinced he had evidence and he had examples. But during our conversation, something interesting emerged. The team had not stopped taking ownership. They had stopped speaking up. Because they assumed their boss had already made up his mind. And the boss assumed team had nothing valuable to contribute. Two intelligent groups of people, both stuck, not because of incompetence, not because of bad intentions, but because of assumptions. And that is exactly what today's episode is all about. Welcome to Q, Questioning Assumptions. Why assumptions are dangerous for leaders? Leadership is full of decisions, and decisions are rarely made with complete information. So what do? We fill the gaps with stories, with interpretation, with assumptions, and over time, those assumptions become beliefs. And here's the catch. Most leadership failures do not happen because of wrong data. They happen because of wrong interpretation of data. This shows up everywhere. A manager thinks a team member is disengaged. A leader assumes resistance to change. A partner assumes bad intent in a negotiation. And a colleague assumes disrespect in a conversation. And suddenly, relationships deteriorate. Decisions go wrong. Conflicts escalate. All because of unchecked assumptions. Why leaders stop questioning assumptions? Interestingly, the more senior the leader becomes, the less they question assumptions. Why? Because experience creates mental shortcuts. Psychologists call these as heuristics. And while heuristics help us move faster, they also make us overconfident. We start believing, I have seen this before. This is how people behave. I know what's really going on here. But leadership in today's world, especially in an environment like technology, global markets, AI disruption, geopolitics, and geology politics, require something very different. Not certainty, but curiosity. Best leaders I work with don't rush to conclusion. They pause and ask, what else could be true? One of my favorite tools to help leaders question assumption is called the Ladder of Inference. This concept comes from organizational learning pioneer Chris Argyris. Let me simplify it. Imagine a ladder. At the bottom of the ladder is raw reality. Facts, data, what actually happened. But we rarely stay there. Instead, we climb the ladder very quickly. Here are the steps. We observe data. We select certain pieces of the data. We add meaning to it. We make the assumptions. We draw conclusion. We adopt beliefs, and then we take action. Here is the scary part. This entire climb can happen in milliseconds before we even realize it. Let me illustrate. You walk into a meeting. One team member is quiet. You think, she is disengaged. But what actually happened? Fact, she was quiet. Interpretation, she is disengaged. Assumption, she doesn't care. Conclusion, she lacks ownership. Action, you stop involving her in key decisions. And suddenly, you have created the very disengagement you feared. Now let's see how to use this ladder of inference in decision making. Great leaders learn to climb down the ladder. Before acting, they ask, what facts do I actually know? What assumptions am I making? What other explanations are possible? This small pause can transform decision quality. Instead of reacting emotionally, you begin think systemically. Now let's see how to use ladder of inference in conflict handling. Conflicts are almost always assumption collisions. Person A assumes intention, person B assumes disrespect. Neither checks the assumption, and the conflict escalates. When leaders introduce the ladder of inference in team, something powerful happens. People begin saying things like, Let me check my assumption. Help me understand what I may be missing. This shifts the conversation from accusation to exploration, and that changes everything. Let's look at how to use ladder of inference in relationship building. Relationships thrive when curiosity replaces certainty. In coaching conversation, I often invite leaders to ask what might be going on in the other person's world. What pressures might they be facing? What story am I telling myself about them? This simple reflection creates empathy, and empathy builds trust. Let me share a story from one of my leadership coaching engagements. I was working with a senior leader in a large technology organization. He was extremely capable, highly respected, but he was frustrated. He told me, "Bhaskar, my team has stopped challenging me. They just nod and execute. I'm happy that they're aligned, but something is not feeling right." So, during one session, I introduced the ladder of inference to him. We walked through a recent meeting that he concluded the day before. And then he started narrating how it happened. Here is what happened. Fact, in the meeting, the team agreed quickly. Interpretation? Wow, they're aligned. My team is completely in sync. They trust my judgment and we can move a lot faster. But when we explored further, a different reality emerged. Some team members believed challenging the leader would be seen as disrespect. Others assumed the leader already made up his mind. And a few simply didn't feel safe disagreeing with him publicly. So the agreement he experienced in the meeting was actually silence disguised as alignment. In the next leadership meeting, he tried something different. He said, "I may be climbing the ladder too quickly here. What assumptions might we be making?" And then he added one powerful sentence, "I would really like to hear what I may be missing here." At first the room was quiet, but slowly one of the team members spoke, then another. Within minutes the conversation completely shifted. Better ideas emerged. Risks were identified earlier. And most importantly, psychological safety increased. Later he told me something that stayed with me. He said, "Bhaskar, I thought leadership meant having answers. Now I realize leadership also means questioning my own thinking." So here is a small experiment for you this week. Next time you feel certain about something, pause. Ask yourself 3 questions. What facts do I actually know? What assumptions am I making? What else could be true here? And then ask one powerful question to the other person. Help me understand your perspective. You'll be amazed at what unfolds. Every key on the keyboard of leadership unlocks a different capability. Today we explored Q, questioning assumptions, because the difference between a reactive leader and a reflective leader is often just one question. Next episode, we move to the next key, W. Until then, stay curious and remember, before you climb the ladder, make sure it is leaning against the right wall.